So when you get busy, a lot of times the business stuff lapses because you're just putting out fires and you're just managing your day-to-day. So early on is a great time to set your foundations. So foundationally, some things that you should consider is like, how are we directing the flow of traffic? So when we get traffic, how are we directing that? And having a piece of software that does this in an automated fashion would be integral to one of those foundational pillars. I did not have that early on. Boomerang did not exist. We had to do it manually. It's very time consuming, and we had a lot of holes or a lot of lapses. So I would say develop your systems, incorporate a software that can truly help drive traffic, partner with someone that's going to help manage the top of the funnel, which I'm sure Jerome will get into what the top of the funnel is versus the middle of the funnel. So partner with someone like Boomerang that can really help manage and drive traffic at the top of the funnel. And they've developed these integrated systems that once you get this patient in your practice, you can get that patient to other areas or other aspects of the practice. And then you'll slowly start to see growth. And when that snowball effect starts to turn and you start to figure out how to manage your sales funnel, it'll roll downhill quickly once you get the wheels spinning.
Welcome to the Path to Profit podcast, powered by BoomerangFX, where we uncover the best practices, strategies, and innovations driving success in the aesthetics industry. This series brings together top experts and successful med spa owners to share how they scale their business, optimize their operations, and maximize profit. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Dr. Talon Maningas, a leading expert in aesthetics, to discuss how clinics are growing faster using lead generation, workflow automation, and patient retention strategies. Dr. Maningas is one of the most successful cosmetic surgeons and med spa owners in North America. He's a frequent speaker, author, and highly regarded pioneer in aesthetics. Today, we'll dive into how med spas, whether in small markets like Joplin, Missouri, where Dr. Maningas operates, or large competitive markets, can win using a fully digital platform that's connected between EMR, scheduling, lead generation, and AI-powered drip marketing, all working together to drive revenue and profit into the med spa. So let's go.
Talon Maningas, great to have you. I know you're a busy guy. You're running one of the most successful med spas and cosmetic surgery practices in America. You're constantly being voted one of the top plastic surgeons and med spa owners in North America. I want to go back to what motivated you, what inspired you to get into aesthetics?
Yeah, first off, Jerome, thanks for having me. It's always time well spent anytime I get to have with you. And then I just love it even more when I get to spend time together educating whoever's watching this video. So I hope whoever's watching, you guys find value in some of the principles we're going to roll out. Aesthetics for me, back to your question, I didn't actually intend to be here. It was a little bit by accident. I was going through my plastics training. I wanted to do reconstruction. I did a lot of fellowship interviews for reconstruction. And then at the 11th hour, my wife said, hey, honey, why don't you flip the script here a little bit, and why don't you do something where you can run a business? You love business. We ran businesses in our earlier years in undergraduate. And I got to thinking about that, and I said, that sounds cool, but what would that be? And she said, why don't we go into like aesthetic surgery instead of reconstructive surgery? So we dabbled around, looked at opportunities. I ended up going to an aesthetic surgery fellowship, and then the rest is history. We came straight out of the gate, moved back to our tiny little town. No people, no money. It's not where you would select on a map to go set up a cash pay practice, but it's hometown for us. We came back and we hit the ground running. I never took any insurance. I didn't participate in any managed care. It was very scary at first. It was very stressful and anxiety provoking. So for all of you out there that are developing something, or you're in the middle of something that feels scary, I was there. We just hung our shingle, started from scratch, and started a cash pay practice straight out the gate.
I want to get into that because, we have a few thousand people who are early in their journey of an aesthetic practice or just jumping in. Okay.
Yep.
You had nerves early on, I'm sure, like most of us starting a new business. What were the 2, 3, 4, 5 things you did early on to get you past that first hurdle?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a whole book about this if you guys want to learn more. It's the Exodus book, which I actually wrote about leaving managed care and jumping into a cash pay aesthetics practice. So if you find some of these principles valuable, look that up through the Boomerang platform. And so early on, let me just say, when you are feeling the weight and the anxiety and the stress of not only how am I going to make this work, but how am I going to feed my family, it's scary. So for those of you that are out there that are feeling that, that's part of it. And so I would say on the backside, 10 years in now, on the backside of success, I would embrace it and I would use it to drive you. So a few things that we did early on when we were experiencing that stress and anxiety and no inflows is we got very strategic about our systems and our structure internally. So when you get busy, a lot of times the business stuff lapses because you're just putting out fires and you're just managing your day-to-day. So early on is a great time to set your foundations. So foundationally, some things that you should consider is like, how are we directing the flow of traffic? So when we get traffic, how are we directing that? And having a piece of software that does this in an automated fashion would be integral to one of those foundational pillars. I did not have that early on. Boomerang did not exist. We had to do it manually. It's very time consuming and we had a lot of holes or a lot of lapses. So I would say develop your systems, incorporate a software that can truly help drive traffic, partner with someone that's going to help manage the top of the funnel, which I'm sure Jerome will get into what the top of the funnel is versus the middle of the funnel. So partner with someone like Boomerang that can really help manage and drive traffic at the top of the funnel, and to develop these integrated systems that once you get this patient in your practice, you can get that patient to other areas or other aspects of the practice, and then you'll slowly start to see growth. And when that snowball effect starts to turn, and you start to figure out how to manage your sales funnel, it'll roll downhill quickly once you get the wheels spinning.
We could talk for hours about how to build a profitable business, and this podcast is about path to profit for aesthetics. The first year, most of the practices we work with, they got a lot of balls in the air. They're juggling a lot of things, very busy, and you were there. And you also did a few things really well. You differentiated yourself from a lot of the bigger players in a very small market. I want to talk about how you did that. How did you, carve out your name, carve out your niche, and then grow from there in your first year?
I love this question. I'm really passionate about this. So there's a couple things that my mind goes to when I think about this. And this sounds very, Jerome, you have your MBA, I got my MBA. This sounds very MBA-ish. When we start saying words like value proposition, it seems meaningless, but let me connect some dots. So the first thing is you need to understand your value proposition to your marketplace. What makes you uniquely valuable to those in your market? And if you can't name it, priority number one is, what is your value proposition? For us, just to be clear, for us in my market, it was the level of results that we could obtain through some of these technologies that you all know about, and then the level of service we provide. So it's excellent care, exceptional results. Excellent care, exceptional results. And we just named that phrase, we claimed it, it's plastered everywhere on all of our media, all of our shirts, all of our tumblers, excellent care, exceptional results. And here's the interesting thing. That was our value proposition. That's what made us uniquely valuable to our market. But I didn't really know exactly what that meant at first. It sounded good. I knew I cared about those two things, but here's what I found after 10 years of trying to deliver on those two things. Every day, that was my guidepost. So when you have a value proposition that you can name and you can project, what you'll do is you'll start trying to live up to that, and then you'll start to try to define that over time. And what I found looking back over 10 years is when we consistently delivered on our value proposition, guess what we built? We built a reputation. And then once you build a reputation, you can do all kinds of things with that reputation. So the first step would be identify your value proposition for your marketplace. That is your first area of differentiation, is understanding who you are and what you're going to promote.
That's awesome, because being very clear on your value proposition. So I'm going to unpack that a bit. You know, in the aesthetic industry, you're doing injectables, radio frequency. How can a practice really differentiate those types of treatments from everyone else in their market doing the exact same thing?
Yeah, that is the challenge, right? And so it's difficult for guys like you and me on this side of the screen to be able to define that for each player. And so the best advice that Jerome can give you or I can give you is, regardless of what that looks like, recognize you are providing a very similar service, like he said, as everyone else next to you. So then the next step towards differentiating yourself is defining how you're providing that service differently, right? And so for us, when we're talking about these services, people begin to notice that we delivered on our value proposition of service excellence and excellent results. Because when I was thinking about how do I live up to this, when it came to a decision of what device to deploy in my practice, I went with a device and only went with a device if it's going to allow me to deliver excellent results. If it's questionable, I don't do that. When it comes to service, we are at least trying to daily live up to that standard that we've set for ourselves of delivering excellence in service. So when that is your guidepost, all of a sudden, the office, when you walk into my office, when we know our value proposition is excellent care, exceptional results, when it comes to excellent care, my office smells good. It looks amazing, right? It allows us to deliver on what we're projecting because we're trying to live by that. So I can't give you this step-by-step in terms of differentiating yourselves from your competition, but what I can say is understand, like Jerome said, everyone is doing the same thing you are. So you need to be able to vocalize how you're doing it differently.
I think one of the things I've noticed in your practice is everyone in that practice is passionate about customer service.
Mm-hmm.
Patient feels really welcomed, and it's consistent. Yep. It's not like you have a good day and a bad day. Every day in that practice, the service experience is awesome, and it reflects a certain DNA that clearly you have built into the practice. So I want to talk about repeat business. How do you now, as an aesthetic practice, it's a very competitive market, you want to keep your patients coming back?
Yes.
Talk to me about because you have a very high retention rate, almost 100%. You don't lose customers.
Yep.
How do you do that?
There's a lot to unpack in that question. The first part of that question is talking about culture, corporate culture, the intangibles. Because as you mentioned, if you stepped into my office, it is a tangible feeling of like, this place is amazing. And that does not happen by accident. So understand, your culture doesn't happen by accident. It takes input from you as the leader, as the provider, as the owner to create that culture. And culture's not only what you create, little tidbit for you, but it's also what you allow. So if you allow your employees to show up tardy, then you're creating this culture where it's okay to be tardy, right? So understand, culture is not only what you create, it's what you allow, and it's the intangibles. So you have to drive that. And the last little bit about culture is the reason why our culture is so strong and so integrated and so kind of consolidated around a central feeling is that we typically hire for attributes. I train for skill. So I'm looking for a certain type of person, right? I can train you to do whatever I need you to do, but I can't train you to be compassionate. I can't necessarily train you to just exude excitement about the aesthetic. Like, those things are personality traits. So I'm always looking for attributes. I'm hiring for attributes, training for skill. And that's how we kind of get the culture we get. Now, onto The next part of your question, Jerome, is retention and recapture. Guys, this is, me and Jerome could do a 5-part series on those 2 words alone. Write them down, retention and recapture. Those are 2 of our levers for growth and sustained success over time. I could give you a bunch of levers that we pull to sustain success and to grow. One of the main ways that we sustain success over time and create growth in our company is by retaining patients we've earned and recapturing patients that we've lost. That takes diligence and intentionality. Here's what I mean. If you all look right now, I wonder how many of you viewing this know your attrition rate for toxin. Do any of you guys know how many people you lost last quarter that didn't come back for toxin? I didn't at first, and then I got smart one day and said, man, let's work smarter, not harder. So that's retention. How many of the Botox or toxin people that came in the last quarter came back? And if you don't know that, you should. And at the very least, you should know how to find that. If you don't have a system that can automatically find that, you've got headwinds and challenges. So the first thing that we did is start identifying for us, when it comes to retention, the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit is limiting or mitigating the amount of attrition. Well, how do you do that? You'll pick up the phone and call people. How do you know who to call? Well, you better have a system that can tell you. So we used to do it manually before our relationship with Boomerang, before Boomerang existed. We would do quarterly reports and look at how many toxin patients came in over the last quarter and didn't come back in. How many toxin patients came in less than 4 times a year? You know, everyone's supposed to come in 4 times a year. How many came in 3 times? And then we simply called them, just picked up the phone and called. And it is amazing to me how many people said something to the effect of, oh, thanks so much for reaching out. We've just been super crazy, haven't thought of it. We did get a lot of no calls, right? We did get a lot of people that said, hey, I don't have money right now, thanks for calling. But to the tune of the last time we did that exercise, which was last quarter, we recaptured 50% of the people that didn't schedule appointment. No marketing, no top of funnel ads. That's literally just picking up the phone. We now, friends, have a system that does that automatically for us. We don't have to do it manually anymore. So if you have a piece of software, it's called a CRM, Client Retention Management System. It's worth any weight that any dollar amount, that you could pay for a CRM. I promise you will more than make up simply by retaining patients or recapturing patients. And so now our system tells us things like, hey, Mrs. Smith hasn't come back in for her Botox. She's supposed to come in every 4 months or 3 months. You set the frequency. And Mrs. Smith hasn't come in. So now my team just follows the instructions on our CRM and they know, oh, she's delinquent. She hasn't checked back in. She hasn't called back in, and they just pick up the phone and call. And you can't believe how many dollars are found doing that exercise.
There's a reason you guys are one of the most profitable med spas in North America. You believe, like we do at Boomerang, the power of retention. It's the reason we called our company Boomerang. Those patients must come back for a lifetime. Our AI drip marketing tool has really been a game changer. It's the only one in the industry. And I think it's really redefined how retention works in this industry. I'm glad you're using it. I'm glad that you guys are seeing the benefits of it. I want to talk about the importance of top of funnel lead generation.
Yeah.
Because it's all fine to retain the ones you have, but we also want to get new patients in the door every day. And that's where Boomerang's lead generation, paid ads on Google, on Meta, and then also a lead management technology that we use to help you track leads to respond to them instantly.
So important.
Would love to hear your experiences on the lead management technology and the ads.
Jerome, before we proceed on, I just want to touch something that you just mentioned about that we kind of breezed past, and that's drip marketing. And when you're using a software that allows you to drip and nurture, the power of that is just amazing. Here's why. Front of mind, right? We're Americans, we're North Americans, if you guys are in Canada or in the United States, and our lives are busy. Everyone's just going a million miles an hour. I mean, I have just, this is my third call today and I got 2 more. Jerome is in the middle of a crazy busy schedule. The last thing I'm thinking about is any appointments that I have. And so to have a piece of software that is keeping your practice front of mind by just consistently dripping and nurturing out, oh, Maningas Cosmetics, come back to Maningas, we haven't seen you in a while. And that just happens where I don't have to think about it. The value in that, I can't display to you guys how important something like that is for retention. So don't underestimate the value of drip and nurture marketing, and more importantly, a system that can do that in an automated fashion so you don't have to type your staff or yourself to make sure that happens. Front of mind, front of mind, front of mind. So now you're talking about taking us down to top of funnel management. And top of funnel, I would say, Jerome, personally, is the biggest challenge for me. And here's why. I am not a computer genius. I'm not a marketing genius. And honestly, my first misstep was top of funnel management. And I was paying a general, and I'm not trying to throw any shade any direction, but originally in my personal experience, I was paying a lot of money that I didn't have. Remember, my first year, I had no money, trying to get people in the door. And I was using a general marketing firm, just your general marketing firm that was local. I tried to keep money local, support local, and they didn't know anything about the aesthetic space. And I was paying them a retainer fee. And when I started looking at my ROI on that, I mean, I remember looking at Amy, guess how many people came in my doors because of all the retainer fees that I was paying? I'll give you a hint, it starts with a 0.
Wow.
Well, that's not true. There was 2 that came in the doors. It was me and Amy. That's who came in the doors. And so my first misstep came from my lack of knowledge of how to market well. I just don't know the algorithms. I don't know how Google works. I don't know how to place an ad. And so then I hired help who didn't know anything about the aesthetic space. And it led to a lot of money out the door with no return. And then you come across a company like Boomerang. Guys, listen, Boomerang solely, that means only, focuses on aesthetic practices utilizing a very narrow window of technologies and services. This is all they do. And so when it comes to automation, when it comes to understanding algorithms and target audiences and how to maximize growth via driving new people to the practice, there's none better than someone who only does that thing. So that was the first lesson I learned, is if you're gonna pair with a partner, make sure that partner is well-versed in your space. And so when it comes to top of funnel management, the way Boomerang helps me so much is, I don't know if the users or the listeners know this, but Boomerang is oftentimes the only, or at the very least, the first to market when it comes to ad campaigns. Like the new Quantum. We were the only company putting out Quantum ads. And we understand when I say we, I mean Boomerang understands the algorithms and how to reach the target demographic and how to make sure that this ad campaign is getting in front of the eyes of the people that need to see it. And so when I don't understand an area of anything in life, I'm quick to find help. And the help that I have found has been Boomerang. So I still don't understand how an algorithm works. I still don't understand how Google AdWords work, but I trust in Boomerang, and I trust the fact that, hey, here's some dollars to go spend, and they spend it wisely, and I get a maximal return for those dollars. So I never will understand how Google AdWords work. I never will understand how to place a Facebook ad, nor do I want to, because I have friends that can help me with that.
In the last few minutes we have left with you, Dr. Maningas, Boomerang was built to be a fully digital platform for a med spa, a busy med spa, whether that's 2 people or 25 people running it, to be a foundational platform, a single platform to help with lead generation, but also EMR, texting patients, accounting, finance, all in one, truly all in one. So how has Boomerang really helped you scale? Because we have a lot of people listening who are interested in taking that next step in putting automation into their practice, because they know it's going to change the game for them.
Yeah.
They would love to hear from you. How has Boomerang really helped you automate
Love
your
that.
practice?
Yes, so you mentioned a very important word, and that's scale. What is scale? So for those of you that don't have MBAs and you're just getting excited and learning about the business world, scale is having the ability to grow. And so when you think about some of the things that you have to grow, you have to have systems that are put into place to handle growth. You have to have people to be able to handle growth. And not only is it growth, it's just capacities. How can I increase capacities? And so that's what scale means when Jerome mentions that word. So when you need to scale, you need to have systems, you need to have people. In some of the systems that we had early on, and what I find as I talk all over the country is that a lot of people have one or two, maybe three of these opportunities, but they're all separate. So you may have an EMR, most people do, right? And that's maybe all you have. And then you have a separate accounting software or financial software like QuickBooks. And then most people don't have a CRM, I'm finding. They have no way to retain, they have no client retention management system. It's just like whoever comes in the door comes the door. So most people have a financial software and an EMR, and that's it. And they're two separate, they don't even talk to each other. And then maybe you have a scheduling software, but my point is very fragmented. We were the same. And nothing's talking to anything, and there's a ton of holes in the armor. When you get with a company that does everything, what happens is you will see all these screws get tightened up. You will see these systems start to work together. So now your billing software is talking to your scheduler, right? And your scheduler is talking to your patient concierge, letting them know who's delinquent or deficient. And then even more so, what's most important that I love about the Boomerang software is the ability to define performance gaps in the future. And so because the software is AI infused, it can say, hey, doc, your schedule's a little light coming up in 4 weeks. Like, you should pay attention to that. And so we can identify performance gaps in the future and start filling those gaps now before we realize those gaps. All of that happens in the same piece of software. So you've got your financial, you've got your client management. That means like texting and reminding patients about their appointments. That seems like a little thing. Even this morning, I had to make a hair appointment for my son. The reason why I literally go to the barber we go to is because they have an app that I can schedule an appointment on the fly on my phone. I don't have to call anyone. It's very quick. It's very efficient. I can just get on here and I can schedule a quick appointment. Those things matter, guys. So having the ability to schedule online or schedule via app or send patient reminders, all of this is housed in one system under one roof, talking together to give you a product that is maximizing revenues.
Love it, Talon Maningas. I know you're a busy guy. We're gonna let you go on this episode. We're gonna bring you back to really break down some of these key success strategies for the aesthetic industry. Looking forward to having you back. Thanks a lot.
It's always a pleasure, Jerome. Guys, I just appreciate the opportunity to have this platform. I hope you guys do a couple of things. I hope ultimately that you choose to partner with Boomerang, because I really feel like it's going to drive success, drive the value of your practice and the value to your patients. And so I just wish all of you that are listening the best of success and in all your endeavors.
Thank you.